Is the objective of inclusion ruining films today? Next up on Just a Talk So, let's talk about it. And welcome to the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks. And I am your humble host, Snoop718, and we're going to get right into the discussion of the objective of inclusion. Is it ruining films? Now let's just talk about inclusion right now. And is the idea of inclusion really that bad? And inclusion would be having a representation of every classification of people. We would start with race. Is that a bad idea? In essence, it's not. Now, let's talk about how far that can go when you have to over focus on not just racial people, because there's ethnicities and colorism all throughout that as well. You got, you know what I mean? And if you want to go by country, you can deal with that too. From India, they have a big issue of skin bleaching and colorism, etc. Latin America, same thing, big issue of not just racism but colorism as well. You see it on TV by who they select to be the maids, which would normally be the darker, the black Latinos, and the lighter to white ones are usually the subject of conversation, desire, the main cast. And you know what I mean, the visualization or the representative of their not only nationality but their ethno class as well, even though they might be the minority by definition. They will be what the first thing the world thinks of when they see that environment, and it'll be hard pressed for them to see anything other than that as the actual representation of that nation. But when you go down there, that might be like a certain area or a certain class. That's not the representation of the people there. Not only that, but the actual natives there as well. So but by understanding that in its respective conversations, when you import that into the film industry, it'll make it exceedingly hard to live up to. Because then not only do you have to worry about the racial classification, you gotta also represent the skin tones. Then you gotta represent the whether they're disabled or not. Then somebody will pop up now and be like, hey, what about people with green eyes? Or what about people who have two different color eyes? I don't see myself. When does that pendulum get to that point? Now, realistically speaking, as we speak about it, it sounds ridiculous. I need representation of people who have two different color eyes. But then we're getting to a point now where we're having to have these discussions about now disabled people, blind representation. We're actually started to get into that conversation when we had the Eternals came out and had actually a deaf young lady, even with what was it called, the Quiet movie, A Quiet Place. They had a young lady that was deaf as well, and I think that is great. Make no mistake about it, because then that's the representation behind the camera as well as on the camera. But think about it, now that's another layer. If you can, with a dye job or act the part, is it really inclusion now? And then it becomes self-defeatist, because what if a deaf person wants to play a character that actually can hear, but they're great at reading lips, they're a great actress, they could do all the things, they're exceptional, but now you made it so that she can only take on roles like that now, well, why would I want to select her? Because then now could we argue she isn't really the representation of the character, person that actually hears? And that might be a bigger jump, because no one's gonna play that dumbass game anyway. I like to think not, but What if it's another larynx? What if it's a deaf person, and that's the only deaf person we could get that's a great actor that could play a person that could hear a role, but she is not an authentic ginger. She is biracial, but the character is written is supposed to be, I don't know, of Greek descent, but she's white passing with the olive skin complexion and can pass for Greek, but now she's not even that as well, and she's hearing impaired. Can she take the role? Now she can't even be in line for it if she can act the part, which kind of tiptoes in the classification of, isn't this what acting is all about? And this goes both ways, whether you like it or not, no matter which side you're on. Now, is it ridiculous to do blackface? Yes, it's ridiculous. But is it far-fetched for a white person to just wear tanning cream to look like they're Greek, but they play the role? They've done this before. Is it wrong to put someone in darker than their complexion if they are black to play a black role? This has been done before. And no, we're not talking about Nina Simone film. We're not even discussing that. Forrest Whitaker did that. If I'm not mistaken, he played Idi Amin. You know, at the end of the day, at what point do we draw a line in the sand? Because then that means that even though, I'm not gonna lie, the trailers did not look good for the Nina Simone film, but I will not lie, the Forrest Whitaker film where he played, I believe it was Idi Amin, where he darkened his complexion, that was a damn good film. You know, I seen that one. I didn't see the Nina Simone movie, so I can't say whether or not if and I forget the actress name right now, which really is bothering me because that's Bae right there. So I'm gonna have to put respect on her name right now. Give me a sec. I'm glad I didn't look it up. I just needed a pause. Zoe Saldana. I can't say that it was a good film that she acted in because unfortunately I never seen it, and it was just hard to get past because it looked like makeup. Now, Forrest Whitaker, he was able to play off a little bit better because he didn't need to put prosthetic nose and mouthpiece and none of that stuff to play the role. But I will say this: the skin complexion wasn't as jarring, but you could kind of notice he had stuff on him. But it wasn't as jarring, I'll say that. But the acting was phenomenal, top tier. But I seen that film. Like I said, the visual communication of how they was trying to present Zoe Saldana was just so ridiculous. It from the wig to the nose piece, you could have found a better actress, you know. And at the end of the day, and I believe they had one in Irie. Oh man, I'm forgetting her name right now too. India Irie. And she's an actual singer. So she could have taken on the role. You know, and even though she doesn't really look like Nina Simone, she has a lot of the aesthetics that'll make you buy into it. So should they had tried to add any prosthetics or even to darken her complexion just a hair, she was already dark skinned enough, it wouldn't have looked as jarring. Even though Zoe Saldana is a darker complected woman, she's not as dark, you know, so it would have not have been such a bigger leap. Then even though she has a broad nose, it's not the same exact shape as in the Irie, who, if you wanted to use prosthetics, it would not have been as jarring a jump, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, you could have gotten someone that could have been more aesthetically closer to who you're trying to present. And again, now with that being said, now how far can it go? Now, if you want to have a character that is of they, them orientation, if you will, do you get someone that actually is, you know what I'm saying, identifying as that? Or how does that work now? Now, what are the rules? Because a they them person could pop up and say, well, that person did identify as they them only within the past year. You couldn't get a real they them, and then the conversation could get out of whack. And maybe the argument should be just extremists of any sort should be maintained. But for films now, if you have to check such a heavy box, is this in totality of the making of the film? Because that's the next conversation. Or is it in front on the front screen? Because that's kind of part of the idea of representation. But we're going to stick with in front of the camera. That would be impossible at some point to please anybody that believes that this is the type of way we should cast films. Because then now the question would be is, well, this person didn't get enough roles as this person doesn't get enough roles as this person. The reason why I'm going here with this, because I've actually watched a channel, don't want to say who, love the channel, I have conflicted issues with it, but I think it's part of the love of watching that person's channel. But one thing that is such a irk to me is every time representation seems to be injected into the conversation. It is just ridiculous how it finds its way into the conversation almost at all times. And for who's pleasing. Because even at some point as this person talks about the representation, they'll stumble across themselves realizing that, oh man, well, now that I found myself talking about how this person isn't really, you could have gotten a lighter shade person if you want to get into colorism, then they find themselves, well, damn man, well, we got to talk about this part of it now. You know what I'm saying? Because what if that person isn't the exact representation of say the movie takes place in Haiti, they're not a real Haitian, and then you have to have that topic. You know what I mean? Just like, oh, we didn't get a real Viking. You couldn't find a real Viking or a real redhead, but the person is white. Well, what about, you know what I'm saying? And then you have a conversation about which one takes a higher premium. Well, we got a redhead. Oh, but they're black. Oh, so now is it more about race? No. And what if they're not technically all the way black? In other words, they're biracial. So they're still half white and they're a redhead. But that half black is black enough that we have to deal with that part. Like, you'll find yourself in a space where it's hard to win. It's to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if the film industry just says, fuck this representation shit now. We don't even want to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? We just here to make movies. We don't. If you're mad that we casted a black person, fine. If you're mad that this is the 45th type of film like this with a white person, fine. We can't please everyone. You'll fuck this movie over and online anyway. We don't even want to talk about the next film. Hey, why don't you make a live action? We don't want to do that. We want that movie to stay back in that time. And maybe they need to. Maybe they need to stop remakes. Because then you know what I mean? It is what it is. But then there'll be a franchise that you'll be like, well, why can't we restart this Marvel universe? Oh no, we don't want to do this. We don't. You feel me? Why? Because if we get an actor that we feel like could do the job, but they're like Hispanic, but notably so. In other words, they're not white Hispanic. Oh, you're gonna have an issue. Because what it really boils down to is the shade of skin or the race. Once everything gets boiled away, it's not about, is this person a real redhead? We know that's not what this is really about. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, look, no one says nothing about, well, actually, is Scarlett Johansson really a redhead now? I don't remember. I think she might really be a blonde. I can't remember. But that's the thing, though. So, the question I want to ask you guys that are even cool with representation, they got no issue with it, because at the end of the day, the idea isn't bad. But where do you fall in line with it? And like I said, sometimes this might be because it cross-pollinates into inclusion with older characters that came from a time where people wasn't even thinking about it nor cared about it, and we accepted things for what it was. So now you have to leave those films back in those times. But again, we got to also bring up the conversation. Sometimes in a lot of these films are, even though they might have changed the name of the characters, they're actually rip-offs of indigenous characters in films. And then you find yourself into this other situation now. There are shows that were created in the States that other countries have adopted and remade that looks like the people there. Just the same as we've taken films like The Departed and remade it over here and recasted everyone, even down to having the IRA, the Irish Mafia, part of it. And no one said anything. No one said anything. So let's be clear, there are a lot of films that Americans have taken from other countries and we put white people all over it. And no one cared or brought it up back then. And if they was to remake it now with, let's say, an Indian family, you will jump off a cliff. Because you didn't even know that the show that you love or the movie that you loved so much was literally a rip-off of another show. That if they was to remake it years from now, you would almost think that, because in your country, you would think, oh, we created this character. No, we took that from somewhere else. So that's a question I want to ask you with representation. And this hits on both sides. So you weirdos that are like, and let's be clear, that are, I hate The Little Mermaid because they casted a little black girl that, you know what I mean? You guys, this is a question for you guys, just the same as it is for those that says, well, why can't we have representation with in The Little Mermaid? You still got the old Little Mermaid cartoon, and that's never gonna change. Yeah, those people too. I ask you guys the same thing, because that means that you can make an original property that is Black, Indian, Chinese, and white people could remake it over here on this side, and they are allowed to do that, to see themselves in your story at some point. And we could bring in all the history and all of that, but I want to keep it just with films. When does the pendulum go too far that it becomes self-defeating? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys listen to this all the way to its end, because this is a conversation that I really think that we could explore on Just the Talk. I wanted, like I said, this is just where we can have conversations. We can opine and really dig into the conversations that are actually existing out here online. And let's just get right into the talk, and I can give you my perspective on it. But I also want you to jump in the conversation too, and maybe we can talk even further about it, and I can make it the subject of the next topic on here, Just the Talk. So you already know what to do. Leave it in the comments below. And as always, like I said, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time. And as always, till I have a better outro. Chill.